Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Here we look at action figures, a mix of new releases and figures that have been out for a bit. Whether you're new to the hobby or you've been collecting for a while, the goal here is simple: honest reviews and whether the figure is actually worth owning or not. And if you're into action figure photography, that's my way of bringing these toys to life. You can check out my Instagram at door.59. So let's get the figure to the side real quick and take a look at the box. So it is that old school classic Amazing Yamaguchi packaging that they don't use anymore. This figure actually came out in May of 2020. Here's the packaging here. Again, I'm a big fan of this. The details on the back, it gives you a lot of idea for articulating the figure and how you want to position it for like different shots. Most of the writing's in Japanese except for the comic writing here. The side action shot, top. We'll start here with the sculpt. So there's nothing that stands out too much about it. Let me take this off here. I do think the sculpting lines and the details are pretty nice for the musculature. Like you see that heavy in the chest. Let me get him in a bit of a more neutral pose. There's a lot going on in the neck there, a lot of detail. And the arms are unpainted themselves, but you do get now for their articulation. So starting with the neck, I think this is a ball and hinge up here. Yeah, so you see that here. And so this peg will move forward and backwards to get movement in the head. But if you wanted to tilt his head side to side, left to right, you would have to rotate this peg like that to get that movement. And so it does give him the ability to kind of go in any range, but just with a little bit of manipulation. And then in his shoulders, he has two ball and hinge joints. You can see them there. Let me get some better lighting. You can see those there. And so again, that does give you the ability to give it a good amount of range, even bringing it up and down a little bit. But they're just like any Yamaguchi, which is most people's frustration. There is a good amount of having to kind of play around with it to get that pose you're looking for. The amount of times I've looked on the back of a box, seen a pose that I'm looking to hit, and probably putting like about an hour into it, is a pretty common thing. And it's kind of just figuring out, like almost like a puzzle piece, like how did this photographer go about positioning that? Then we do have these butterfly joints, which are pretty dynamic, which really works well for Wolverine because he's going to be getting in those deep squat poses, like about to strike. But yeah, I mean, the shoulder starts off kind of all the way back here. I think it'll go in a full 360 actually. If I force it a little bit, which I'm not going to do. So all the way down here, if you're looking for that little more of like a leaning forward kind of look. And you can position it so that it's decently flush. A lot of work with photography is holding good angles so that you hide a good amount of that whenever possible. And then going into his biceps again, you have that ball and hinge joint. It's a bit of a larger one, but that'll give you a good amount of flex up to there, and then extension gets nice and straight. In his wrist again, same ball and hinge joint, just a tiny one, which they do come with a couple of extras just in case they do break. Each of these ball and hinge joints are always two separate pieces, but you get a decent amount of distance there. It's more just stopped by the plastic. And then getting to his ab crunch, you're going to about there, and then going backwards. Going backwards, he's basically standing up. Yeah, and he won't go back any further. The rest you can definitely get by moving the legs, but that's it for the ab crunch. And I'll show you exactly what's going on inside here. Because it's going to be pretty similar to the head, where here's this piece I keep talking about. Again, it's throughout the entire figure, this ball and hinge joint. So the way I have it positioned now, it's moving forward and backwards because you can see the line there. So if I wanted to get him to tilt his waist left and right, I would have to pull this piece a little bit towards me and then rotate it that way or the other way. Which for now I'm going to keep them as is. Those pieces can get a little bit tight over time, but I've never had an issue with the larger ones like that breaking. You kind of just have to jimmy around with it a little bit. And here's the peg that it goes into. And then I guess we'll take a look at his thigh connections here, because these are just ball joints down here, which give him a good amount of movement. And the belt piece is a loose floating piece. But yeah, the way they made the figure, it's almost like his neutral pose is a bit hunched over, which, in my opinion, works for Wolverine. It's pretty rare that I'll have him just in a position standing up normal. So I showed you the joint inside the thigh there, and then you do get a thigh swivel here. My figure, the way it came, the way that thigh swivel works, it's just a plug that goes in, and there's nothing really holding it. So this one here will pop off once in a while. Again, I've had the same figure since it came out almost 6 years, and just plugging it back in isn't a problem. And you could see like it's not just gonna fall apart or anything. Maybe if I did that a little bit more, probably would. Getting to the knee here, that's just a hinge joint, which gets pretty good flexion coming back. I'd actually think it would be a little bit better, but that's the most it goes there. And then you do have these like shin pieces here. These are definitely on some kind of ball hinge, because you can see they go forward, back, left, and right. You can kind of move in a circle. They just give you a little bit more flexibility if you're trying to hit a dynamic pose, which I really appreciate. But this piece and other figures is always kind of hard to mess with. It's always hard to know if it's an actual ball joint. This is a rare one where I can tell it definitely is. I've never pulled one of these out, though. I kind of want to. Getting down to the ankle here, again, you have that ball and hinge right there. So same situation. The ankle will go a little bit out, but if you want to bring it out even more drastically, well, I guess that's going to hit as much as you need. And then you have the toe hinge here, which doesn't go down past, but comes up. Diving into the accessories, so I removed his head off the figure itself. So he does come with 3 head sculpts total. I actually think they're pretty cool for what you'd want for Wolverine. You have the neutral face there. You have the screaming face, which looks pretty decent with the teeth here. That's painted pretty well, especially for figures I see today. And again, this is 6 years old. And then we'll talk about this head sculpt here a little bit. So what first off, it's cool. He's kind of got that angry, kind of comic feel to it, that angry Wolverine look. And he comes with this slash effect here. So what this is meant to do is you plug it on, like say like the back of a figure, like there. And it'll kind of give the effect looking like they're getting slashed across them, which I think it accomplishes the job. It's nothing too special or spectacular. And then it comes with a pair of claws, which are painted pretty nice. They look pretty metallic. They're a little squishy here, but they're not going to move really up and down, which is nice because it's pretty thick plastic going up and down here. And so again, I've had this guy for 6 years, and the claws are 100% kind of the same. Look the same the day I took him out of the box, which I know is kind of more than Marvel Legends can say. I know people get figures where the hooks are separated up, down, left, and right, and don't hold together too well. But these hold together pretty nicely. And then you have the hands, kind of open gesture hand here. Trigger fingers, which seems to be just every action figure comes with a trigger finger hand. That's not really Wolverine's thing. Pair of fists. And we'll talk about this hand in a second here because this one has kind of a funny story. It looks like a trigger finger hand, but it's not. It's different from the other trigger finger. You can see the separation, the gap. We'll talk about that though in a second. There is kind of a interesting decision that they made. So you'll probably see this extra piece here on the left. So the back of the hand here has a little plug there, and then so does this piece, and that's meant to go in like that. And so now it just looks like a normal hand where the claws are retracted. But the idea there is you could pull it out, and then the claws have the same piece, and you could plug those in. You probably saw it was falling off during at the start of the review. Some of the hands hold them tighter. Some of the hands don't. It's a little more loose and wobbly. But so overall, like if you're playing with the action figure and moving pieces around, they are going to fall out. But if you pose it and sit it still or for photography, it's not going to go anywhere. Um, you can see that with a little shake. That's not moving. So getting back to this hand, so when this figure was announced, and I'll try and see if I can find photos. It was mentioned that, or it was in the photos that he would come with a cigar. Wolverine smoking on a cigar. And when the figure finally released, the cigar was not in the packaging, but the plastic slit where they would have put the cigar was still there. But for whatever reason, they removed it. Um, and what I actually did years back was I took I took a match, broke it in half, and then just painted it brown and silver just to get that cigar kind of appeal to it. This piece here that I made is about 6 years old, so don't go too harsh on me. But then this gets held pretty well in the hand. So it is cool that it came with it, and you can definitely make your own piece if you're looking to pose them with a cigar. I don't know of any other Wolverine figures that come with a lit cigar. But again, this is something I just made on my end, but kind of an interesting story there. So some final mentions here. Uh, this Wolverine MSRP'd for $74.99 6 years ago. What's funny is I actually remember thinking that that was a lot of money to spend on an action figure, and now it seems that anything above a Marvel Legends, you're almost looking at a minimum of about $60 to $70. So, as you everyone's probably seen, Amazing Yamaguchi's go from more around 120 to 130 now starting. So a price that's almost doubled in the last 5 6 years. And so there is one listed on eBay right now for $250, $60 shipped, and then there is one listed on Amazon for $392. So those aren't sales numbers. I would imagine this figure probably goes for 200 plus for an authentic, but that's gonna be your other big problem there. You're gonna find a ton of people selling quote unquote authentic, but then sending you a fake one. I've actually received those before and send them back right away. And it's very easy to tell when you receive a fake Amazing Yamaguchi. And some closing statements why I bought this guy back in the day. I know he could definitely, again, kind of feel like a puzzle with an Amazing Yamaguchi, but that's actually something I seek out as having doing the toy photography. It gives you, while it's difficult, it could be more difficult to achieve the really dynamic poses. But you actually do get that ability to achieve those poses. Something that, in my opinion, a standard Marvel Legends will struggle to get into most of them. But this figure's not for everyone. You might be looking for something a little bit less expensive or even something more. But it's not all about the money. That's more just a data point for people to know and be aware of now. Hopefully they do make. They wouldn't. They probably wouldn't re-release this guy. I think if anything, we'd get a 2.0. But I would love to see what that would look like. I do have my eye on a couple of other Wolverines, more specifically the Mafex, the number 96. Um, so if you guys have that, let me know what your thoughts. Let me know how it compares. And I hope you found this review helpful. As always, if you have any questions, just let me know. Shoot me a message or leave a comment, whatever. I'd be happy to get back to you on it. And and if you're into action figure photography or even interested in it yourself, go ahead and check out my page, door.59 on Instagram. And if you have any questions there about how I go about my photos, again, something I'm happy to answer for you. Thanks and see you in the next one.